Hi, everyone. Welcome to Getting Personal with Compt, a show that is all about uncovering the ways in which we can make the workplace a little more personalized, a little more human, just a little bit more enjoyable for all of us. I'm host Lauren Schneider, and today I have with me Tarek Kamil. Tarek is the CEO and founder of Cerkl, an AI powered platform that elevates internal communications. And if there's one thing that I know about communications is we all need to do a little bit better of a job chit-chatting with one another, which is what I hope Tark and I can do today. Tark, welcome to the show.
Lauren, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I want you to tell everyone a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to start Cerkl, because we all know that we need to improve internal communications, but how did you come to recognize like this is something that I should be doing?
Oh, Lauren, I wish I was as smart as you are attempting to give me credit to be, but I am not. I am a nerd. So let's start with that. My background is technology, software. I like building things. I like solving complicated problems, but the entire concept of Circle had nothing to do with internal communication when it started. It
Hmm.
started with my desire to get more people engaged in education. And so I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was serving on our school board. My kids are in school in the school district, and I'm serving on the school board. As a technologist, I was wrestling with how do we get more people involved with our kids' education?
Hmm.
Right. Lauren has lots that she brings to the table. I'm sure there were students that would love to hear about your background and your journey and where you went to school and all your passions. But we send so much communication that falls on deaf ears because everybody is so busy.
Yep.
And so that is what I initially set out to do was how do we create a way of communication that is really tailored to the recipient? You think about how people communicate today, it is very much, some organization and they have a bunch of things that they want to say. And
Hmm.
it's about them. And they're talking to the middle of the bell curve. What
Yep.
will resonate with the most people? Great. But we're so busy that doesn't work anymore. That worked 20, 30 years ago when you had wow, probably 30 years ago when you had like three TV stations and people read the newspaper and they listened to the radio. They didn't have smartphones, they didn't have social media, they didn't have all of these other ways to get information.
Hmm.
And with really the advent of the iPhone, so go all the way back to 2007, it opened a floodgate that is still overwhelming people to this day. And so the traditional ways of us communicating are no longer effective. You can't talk to the middle. You will be irrelevant, especially when they're comparing you to how does Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Spotify make me feel? They make Lauren feel as though she's the only viewer, watcher, subscriber, reader, because everything is tailored to you, because they put a premium on the value of your time. And so that's all I was really setting out to do in the very, very beginning was find a better way for us to communicate to get more people engaged.
That's so interesting when you think about how much time that we spend at work and how much of our just mental space that we spend in communicating with people at work, but then we take that home with us also. So we've evolved as a workforce in understanding maybe I do need or deserve a little bit more work life balance and separatization, or if I have the opportunity to love what I do at work and communicate with the people around me regularly in a way that's more meaningful, then why shouldn't those things be personalized to me? Especially if I'm trying to show up and be my best self. How am I supposed to do that if it's not personalized, I mean, that's something that we talk about with just the future of work and employee recognition
Hmm.
and
Right.
benefits and all of those things. So it's like every piece of work is getting more and more personalized. So how did you come to recognize like there was maybe a missing piece in what you're trying to solve, um or maybe it was just the understanding that all of these things really are deeply interconnected and we have to all tackle it at once.
It really was uh, one of those serendipitous kind of lightning strike moments. So I'm thinking about this from a engagement with education perspective. I
Mhm.
build Cerkl. This is just nights and weekends, nerding out. This is how I enjoy spending my time. So I build this thing to get more people engaged around this one school district. And lots of people start coming to me and saying, wow, this is really cool technology. Could we use it for this and this and this? I said, sure, it's free. Not free anymore, but it was free back then. It was like everybody used this. A large healthcare organization came to me and they had 10,000 employees at the time. And they said, hey, we're getting all this personalized communication from all these different organizations around us. Could we use this technology internally to personalize how we're communicating to our workforce? So you've got an audience of 10,000. They're in different hospitals, different departments, different job functions, working different shifts. You've got neurosurgeons, you've got facilities.
Mhm.
How in the world do you talk to the middle? And they knew that it wasn't working. So they came to me and said, what do you think? Would this technology work for us? And I said, I don't know why it wouldn't work, but I don't know anything about internal communication. The last time I worked for a large organization, this was years and years and years prior, it was Outlook and SharePoint.
Mhm.
What are you doing today? And I'm expecting some futuristic Elon Musk, Tony Stark type of response.
Right.
And they said Outlook and SharePoint. And I was like, whoa, are you kidding? You mean all of the advances we've seen in marketing and understanding your consumer and personalization around the buying journey? Are you telling me none of that has translated inside of the organization? I said, no, everybody's doing this. It was mind blowing for me. And the reason it's mind blowing for me is as an entrepreneur, I fundamentally believe the most important asset of any organization is their people. It's not their product, it's not their service, it's not their customers, it's not their board. It is your employees. And the fact that no one is really paying attention to giving them a better experience was just wow. I said, all right, let's try this. Let's roll this out. Let's see how it goes with this large healthcare organization. And it was a massive success to the point where we took this healthcare organization down to an internal communications conference in New Orleans. And she's on stage talking about what they've done. Now, remember, this is 10,000 people.
Mhm.
And in the audience are Fortune 500 companies. There are global hundreds and hundreds of thousands of employees, and they will not stop asking her questions. How did you do this? You're sending personalized communication by via AI and machine learning to every employee based on what they need to know and want to know. She's like, yeah. And these are massive brands that will not let her get off the stage. So when I saw this, I thought, holy cow, nobody, I don't care how big you are, the resources that you have, nobody is thinking about their employees in the same light as they think about their customers. We need to change that. So that was kind of the eye opening epiphany moment when we were at that conference and I saw her get mobbed. It was I don't know. I would say the Beatles, but to be more modern, I'll say Taylor Swift. So it was like Taylor Swift coming off stage. That's what it looked like, and it was unbelievable.
I love that you said that you understand people are your most valuable asset. Um, because one, that is exactly how we operate as a company at Compt. But two, that's exactly what we believe in our mission to do the same for other companies. And sure, our slice of the world or the pie is just the employee benefits and how do we personalize benefits to make them more meaningful, things at work that work for you in your specific stage of life, in your specific family, in your specific hobby, or whatever you want to do. So it's fascinating to me that, well, and it's not fascinating. I expect that you have experienced the same thing where you're thinking, "Oh, these giant companies, they've got to have it figured out. They've been doing the same thing for so long. They have to have figured out a better way, a more modern way to support the modern employee." And yet here we are, you and I talking about they haven't done that. And how do we do what we do to teach them there are ways that you can do this. You can support your people and foster a culture of open communication, meaningful recognition, all of the things that really matter to people when they show up for work. So I want to ask you,
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. We are very aligned on that.
that said, I want to take a look a little bit internally since you are a people leader yourself in a way. So, how do you do exactly what you are trying to do outwardly, inwardly? How do you build that culture of open communication and strong supported teams?
It's a great question. I think it starts, 'cause we've been doing this for a long time, and we've seen all types of different companies of different sizes, different geographies, different industries, of course. And I would say the common thread is that leadership fundamentally sees the value of their people. So there's really two ways, I think, to view your workforce. For almost every company, it is their single largest expense. And so, do you view it as an expense or do you view it as a competitive advantage? That's where you start. Because if leadership uh, believes that, everything is a waterfall from that. How they engage their people, how they communicate with their people, the benefits they offer, wellness programs, you name it, across the board. You see that they're putting their people first. And
Hmm.
there are studies that support all of this. So they don't remember the person that wrote the book. I think it's called The Employee Experience Advantage, maybe something along those lines. But he studied hundreds of companies and did this analysis of how they think about the employee experience. And then he found a high correlation between those companies that value their employees and employee experience and revenue, growth, profitability are all higher for those companies.
Right.
And so it's interesting when you put your people first, how much the entire company benefits. And that's been my approach for a long, long time. How do we support our people first?
So tell me a little bit what that looks like then for you, and how you've been so successful. Because I imagine that after you supported this 10,000 person hospital and it went over sh- amazingly well at this conference to the point where other people were like, I have to know about this. You had to have some kind of influx in business and you're growing and you have all of your people to support. So tell me what this looks like.
I think, practically on a day to day basis, it is putting putting them first. So there will always be times of friction within any organization where you have decisions to make, either on resource allocation, strategy, direction, all of those things. If you put your people at the top of that and you think about them first, what will benefit them the most, and make decisions consistently along that line, I think you get really positive outcomes. For me personally, I believe in just being crazy transparent because you're an adult and I want to give you all the information that you can have so you can make the best possible decision for you and your family. So I'll tell you when things are good, bad, or ugly. So we don't want to hide anything. We don't want to uh, make things look better than they are when they're not. We want people to understand what we're actually dealing with and thinking about, and I want people to have a voice. And they should feel free to come to me, challenge ideas, direction, strategy. So a lot of that is just getting ego out of the way. So how do you get
Right.
ego out of the way because of job title, tenure, salary? There's ego that's attached to all of those things. So within your culture, even, do you have a culture where people feel really comfortable in terms of questioning and challenging other people? And I am a huge believer in that just because how else could you possibly innovate if you're stifling creativity? And so those are just some kind of practical ways we think about putting people first.
How do you sustain those things in your team? Because I imagine there are some challenges with transparency where it can be a really great thing, but it can be also maybe a little bit of a scary thing. And people want to feel secure, safe, like they have a
Mhm.
handle on their job, that they have job security, that they know directionally where the company is heading. And then that they also just feel recognized for the work that they're doing. So, how do you accomplish all of that?
It's a lot, but I think, again, if you're consistent and that's part of your DNA, to me, it's like leading a healthy lifestyle. If you're just doing it every once in a while, that's hard. If it is just how you live, you don't even think about it. Of course, we're going to be transparent. Of course, we want your feedback and your opinion. Of course, that when we post a job opening, we're going to include things like this is who we are, this is how we interact with each other. We cuss. You don't like cussing, you probably shouldn't apply. Like, we're going to be so transparent about what you're getting yourself into. And the interview process is doubling down on what they just read. So, as they talk to different people within the organization, um, they're going to hear the same things from everyone. And so, a lot of it is just consistency. So, if you really want to be healthy, it can't be all right, on Sunday, I'm going to eat super healthy, but the rest of the week, I'm going to go to town. It has
Hmm.
to be every day. That's just who you are. And whether we like it or not, I think the reality of the situation is people look up. So they
Yeah.
look above them and they say, how does that person act? And they will mimic that because they've been conditioned. If you follow that person's lead, you too can be successful. So it has to be consistent and you have to understand human psychology where everyone just looks upward. So if you have someone that is not consistent within your organization, it is not just them, it is everyone that sees them, everyone that reports to them. It is a massive issue that needs to be addressed and it needs to be addressed quickly. You're either with me or you're against me.
Because this is how you operate, what you inherently believe in, and then also what you're trying to do for other companies, what are some common challenges that you're seeing other organizations face? Or where are they missing the mark, where you can step in and help them?
I think Lauren, we're in such a fortunate position. By the time a company comes to us and they say, we want to do better, we want to see what's out there. How can we bring a consumer grade experience inside of our organization? Our employees deserve it. They have already made up their minds that their employees are important to them. That's awesome because that makes our life a lot easier. Like, great, we agree.
Right.
Let's make awesome together. Then we every once in a while we'll get an organization come to us because of something else. Um, they've just gone through an acquisition. There's some change in leadership. There's some issue with some segment of their workforce, and they want to put a fire out. Those are a lot more difficult because it's just a point in time. And it's the person that, you know, they drink their face off. And then the next day they say, I'll swear I'll never drink again.
Right.
Next Saturday they're drinking. That's that's temporary, right? We want the people that fundamentally believe what we believe. And fortunately for us, the vast majority of people that find us, come to us, want to talk about communicating and engaging their workforce have already talked themselves into the value of doing that.
What about for the minority then? The people who haven't already necessarily talked themselves into that, especially because we know that the people leaders, the HR teams, the employers, whatever that looks like within an organization, are a little bit, I don't know, nervous, apprehensive about AI and how we're going to implement policy around that and how it influences or supports employees. Like everyone's being very careful and trying to figure out, well, if we know that the traditional approach isn't working, what do I do next?
Yeah, to me, that's like talking to someone that has a horse and buggy about battery charging your car. They're
Right.
so far from that. You're not even close to that. You have a horse and buggy and you're worried about where you're going to charge. That doesn't even make sense. So we would start with baby steps.
Mhm.
Forget about AI, machine learning, all of that. We would start with, how do you communicate today? Are you sending too much email? When you send email, do you have analytics? Do you know who opened, who clicked, what they clicked on? When you send out the CEO's message, do you know what percentage of your workforce engaged with that? Can you break it down by tenure, by department, by location, by generation? Do you have any data to make better decisions? Because can you imagine doing marketing without data? Well, that's what you're doing,
Yep.
right? So if you don't have any data, that's where we would start. We would start with the basics. Let's get you data. So great. We'll continue to help you send better looking email, templates, all of those things. They're going to be awesome. But most importantly, you're going to have real data so you can make better informed decisions. Once they're there, we'll talk about, how do you segment messaging? How can you send a message to just this cohort of people without sending it to everybody? Right? So targeting and segmentation is super important. And how do you sit on top of your people data to allow your communicators to communicate effectively, fluidly, without needing HR to send them a spreadsheet every week, or IT to build them a distribution list because it doesn't exist? You should be in control of this. So when we talk to really anyone, we talk about kind of foundational survive type moves, which is audience management, your targeting segmentation, email, because we know everybody sends email, and making sure that email is giving them real actionable data. That's starting point.
Right.
Now, then we can get into the conversation around, okay, you get the basics done. Let's next talk about, how do you communicate to all employees? Do you need a mobile app? How do you make everyone feel included? how do you use AI and machine learning so that Lauren's experience is personalized wherever she goes within your organization? That's phase two. But you have to start with phase one, which is your basic blocking and tackling.
Who are the types of people who are coming to you for this? Is it the higher ups in an organization? Do they realize this is an issue? Or is it more the middle managers? Who's the canary in the coal mine, so to speak?
That's a great question. It varies, of course, I think is the stock answer. Internal communications is one of those enigmas within an organization because it moves. Accounting is accounting, finance is finance, marketing. Internal
Right,
communications could be in HR. We've seen it in marketing, we've seen it in finance, we've seen it in legal, we've seen it in operations, we've seen it be its own standalone function. And then within that function, it could be someone that's running that function. So you've got a really strategic mind thinking about how I want this organization to look 12 months from now. And that's their focus, is bringing that consumer grade experience inside. It could be a middle manager. It could be a communicator that has been tasked with. They come out of this. I make up these scenarios in my head. They come out of a meeting, and the CEO asks their boss how many people clicked on the video or the message or whatever, and they
right.
can't answer the question. Or uh, they're having a problem retaining deskless workers. Maybe it's manufacturing, could be healthcare, retail, whatever. And someone says, hey, we should roll out a mobile app to our deskless workers so they feel included. And that starts a journey of discovery. And a lot of those people find us and we walk them through, here's what your future could look like. Everything that we talk to them about is really based in empathy. How
Right.
would you want to be treated as an employee? Great. Let's treat them that way. Oftentimes, it's not a lack of empathy that keeps them from moving, it's a lack of understanding of tech and what's possible. They're so um, mired in how things have always been done. This has to be an email, post this into the carousel of the intranet. Uh, that's just build the newsletter by hand, get no
Mhm.
analytic. They just don't know anything else. So when they see what's available to them, they get super excited, and that makes us super happy.
I want to know more about a particular scenario. You might have a favorite use case or something that happened where you took a company or even just a person or a team within a company from what maybe you would describe as the worst way to do it or in a way they shouldn't have been doing it or an old school way of doing it and completely came around to the personalization piece. And I want to know what that personalization looked like because I imagine it's different for every industry and company. But I would think that you have one that is maybe near and dear to your heart or something that you always think about.
I do. There's a story that comes to mind. Large global technology company out of California, and they did an RFP, and it was around replacing their current internal email vendor. So we submitted and we were selected as a finalist. And then they invited us to Northern California to do a final presentation. They were very strict about the rules of this presentation, what we could and could not talk about. And I went with one of our account execs because the opportunity was so big. And as we're getting ready to present, I said, I can't just do email. Of course, we do it, but I can't leave here and not talk about how the world should be.
Hmm.
And he said, but the guidelines are super specific about what you can and can't talk about. I said, you know what? If we lose this deal and we talked about how the future should be, it's we lose, I will own that. It's totally on me. What I don't want to do is go and not talk about what we really believe, what we see, and then we lose. I don't want to have any regrets. So we go into this meeting, and I think they'd given us 50 minutes or something, and they had probably 20 people in the room and another 30 people attending this presentation virtually from all over the world.
Wow.
And so, say yes, email, yes, analytics, yes, audience management, and we want to show you something else. And I thought I'm going to get my wrist slapped. Nobody said a word. They just let us go. And we get to the end, and I'll never forget it. Someone from London chimed in and she said, I'm on our future of work committee. What you just showed me is what our committee has been talking about coming. We thought this was 5 years away. We had no idea
Mm.
someone is doing this today. That was incredible. And I was like, okay, this is why we do what we do, is to get that reaction. And we did end up winning the deal. And they are one of our best customers, super innovative, really care about their people. But you take a chance. Like, I just fundamentally believe we should treat people like how we want to be treated, and that includes inside of your company.
That leads perfectly into my next question about the type of advice that you would give to leaders who want to better communicate with the bell curve of their company, but not just that, everybody in their company, to personalize communication, to maybe be more transparent, to create a wholesome culture, I guess, or a place where just people want to be. They want to work, they want to thrive, and they want to think positively about their workplace when they sign off Friday at 5 p.m. or whatever that looks like in whatever
Yes.
shift you work, you know?
Yeah, I think the advice I would give to leaders in general is the cost of someone leaving your company is great. There are real dollars associated with that. And if you really think about, someone highly rated, they're a great worker, they collaborate, they've been there for some amount of time, so they've got a lot of institutional knowledge. And for whatever reason, that person leaves. The cost of replacing that person. So when you think about the real cost on your organization to replace one person, so we've got to deal with offboarding, we've got to deal with the loss of all that institutional knowledge,
Hmm.
we've got to deal with the internal cost of or external recruiting, job postings, internal interviewing. So that's if I'm having people interview you, that's taking away time they could be doing something else.
Yep.
Then there's training costs, there's setup costs, there's how much time will it take for this person to reach the same level of productivity as the person we just lost. It's a big number. And that's
Yeah.
for one person. So when you start multiplying across an entire organization, the dollars add up pretty quickly. I think HR in general doesn't do a good enough job of taking credit for the work they do. I don't think, and I think they're so humble and modest, and internal communications is even worse. They're so humble about the amazing work that they do that they're not really seen as adding tremendous value to the bottom line, like marketing, sales, operations. There's
Right.
not hard dollars attached to that. So if I was talking to leaders, I would say, do you know what is your average cost to replace one person within your organization? I would guess the vast majority don't know. And that's a mistake that HR is making. This should be a big number that we talk about all the time. Every time you save someone, I'm just going to make up a number. Let's say the cost to replace in your organization is $100,000 all in.
Hmm.
Okay. What's the difference between landing $100,000 in terms of a new sale or saving someone from leaving you that would cost the company $100,000? To your CFO, there is no difference. It's the same. It goes all to the bottom line. But we're missing this opportunity to really highlight the value of investing in your people. And so that's where I would really start and end the conversation is your people are your biggest asset.
Is there maybe another, I don't know, sneaky red flag or metric to look out for? Because the cost of retention and replacing employees, I feel like we know that maybe we don't digest it and truly understand it enough or really understand the weight of it. Is there something else that also might be an indicator or something to look out for?
In terms of potential attrition,
In needing to like improve your internal communications, or risk losing someone.
yeah. So I think about it like this. I think what's the value of amazing internal communication and having the tools and technology to support your people? I think about productivity.
Hmm.
Why are you seeing something you've already seen? That's a waste of your time. Just because you read about open enrollment starting September 1st on the internet, why am I getting an email about the exact same thing? And why is that my lead story in my newsletter? Why is that in Teams or Slack or wherever? That's unbelievably unproductive. So
Right.
forget about retaining talent. Think about productivity. Think about inclusion. So, are you making all your employees feel the same? Just because I work in a factory, why should I be treated differently than someone that works in IT within your same organization? So, inclusion's a big deal. I think about liability. How do you know that the people that needed to see this actually saw it? So, you need controls there from a liability perspective. So, there's lots of different ways to get to the same kind of ROI metric. Retention
Right.
is clearly the easiest and the biggest, but there's all these other important pieces of your workforce that can all be, I mean, just foundationally improved with better communication.
Right. I think that is a great way to wrap up our conversation. But before we go, what is next for Cerkl?
Oh, that's a great question. We really pride ourselves. I saw this metric the other day from our product team. 83% of what we put out is feedback from our customers, listening to them. How can we provide more value to you? So I'm super proud of that metric. So we have a lot of exciting features and functionality that we're getting ready to roll out, more in terms of kind of generative AI, embedding more of that into the platform. We think about how can we do a better job of engaging a deskless workforce. We have a mobile app today, but how can we do better? And so we've got some really unique, I think, opportunities to tackle that because it's a huge problem for lots of organizations. So for us, it's continued growth, continued innovation, um, really trying to fundamentally close the gap between how we believe the world should be and where it is today. And that's all I think about. It's 25 hours a day, Lauren. It's I want to close that gap.
Tark, thank you so much for your time today. I truly appreciate it, especially because it just feels really nice to talk to other people who so deeply believe in creating more human workplaces, just companies that care about their people so that people care about the companies and it's all reciprocal and just better for all of us in the future of work, period, you know?
I couldn't agree more. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You were absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Right back at you. If you
Thanks.
listening would like to be a guest on Getting Personal with Compt, please send me an email, lauren@compt.io. Until then, we'll see you next time.